Here too. Oh, I see. Here too, as I reflect on your words, I think, blazing with the glory of noble marks and haloed, that shouldn't be hallowed, haloed in a net of light rays. This teacher, in a voice of pristine melody, spoke thus in such a way. No.
Oh, dear. Then, Dilla Chusung Saman, that and they in Chirangi, Sunrock, Tenjung, Tuna, some Tang Yun do years ago. Tombang was Majin, and Tembe, Sungbe, Sunrock, Tenjung Song Shebe, Tunia, and some Tang Yun do Dilla Chusung Saman Nas at what this ago.
And so, yeah, here too, as I reflect on your words, he says. So what that means is, Rinpoche is saying, so yes, I feel this sort of loss at not having received teachings directly from you. But when I reflect on the teachings that you gave, and then it'll carry on.
That deal months today, Sembe Pege Rauto Bar, Rich Chave Yongo said that Guyun Denda, any Tugun de Kitchego, Sembe Pege Rauto Bar, Takundo, Sembes and send the pages at Sanjay, send the pages at Kitchigorwa, and Sanjay Chirang, Guyun de send some Bosum Jusani, pages on Bujus and Amjong to Tishigor, or dig any Yundenda Damba, Guyun de Tomato Damba. Any chamber that there was the in 2 Yunde, Yunde Tita, Dembe, and Tube Bochans, Dombati, Guyunde Tomato Damba, 2 Yunde Tomato Dembe, Domba Chirangi, Dombati, Science, Sung, Guyunde Tomato Damba, 2 Yunde Tomato Dembe, Domba Chirangi, in it, Sung Sambe Yangi is. What this is what?
Then he goes on to mention the qualities, the physical qualities of the Buddha. So it mentions here the glory of the noble marks. So this is actually talking about what we can simply call, we often call the major marks, 32 major marks and the 80 minor ones. So that's talking about the qualities of the holy body. And then where it says, he goes on to talk about the qualities of the holy mind. Yeah, that's maybe, I don't see that in the English, but anyway, also, you know, he's thinking of the qualities of the Buddha's mind, the qualities of compassion and wisdom. And then when it says the spoke in a voice of pristine melody, so Sangyang, anyway, so that's the Sangyang, and this is talking about the qualities of the Buddha's speech, the various melodious qualities, the wonderful qualities of the Buddha's speech. No.
That is suggested, Dioma suggested Tanyamdo Road. Dini Titer Sunyamdo, Yila Tube, Sunyani, Shero Samin, Hawaii, Duna, that's the Shin to me said.
So having mentioned those qualities of the body, speech, and mind of the Buddha, then then it sort of runs into the rest of the next verse. So how it goes in the English. So yeah, spoke thus in such a way. So then he goes on to say, the instant such a reflection of the sage's form, the Buddha's form, appears in my mind, it soothes me, just as the moon rays heal fever's pains. No.
그랑게 꾸이윤데 도마다 댐바 투로 니 첨바다 제외 윤데 댐베 두번 뭐 최지 송그 상배양 송 상배양지 와 아니 시라게 바르도 준비 아니 다간다 사모 동반이 댐베 송망부 디제디 니 송요리스 와 다 디제디 송샤냠도 아니 디네 데터 송냠도 일라 투베 송니 아니 디제지 송샤 섬 아니 셈semля 아니 댐베기 아니 구송 투주인데 디제 샹니 셈ля 테니 일라 투베 송니니 샤로 잠양스 다 가소레 송 자침부 디제지 송샤 300기 아니 삼로 땅인데 아니 dom바케랑 아니 다칸다 구송 투주인데 디제 송니 멜롱로 송니 샤바네 니 셈ля 샤리 윤두 삼바 아니 그게 가서 셔러 봤자면 차와이 동라 다스 심으면 차와에서는 먼저 차외게 강에 시우지에 qabla 님의 다외 요새들 숙좀 보다 아니 그게 장세시 샤저와 디기 아니 차외게 동에 세기도 와스 어디는시 인키랑게 송디게디 야 땅이 제윤도 삼바 아니에게 생 강에 다 냥에 디게 세기도 어디 숨고
Because of the Kiawa nurse the Shubite, because of the Gokama joins and Yang in the
냥에 세도 어디리데 다 디게 삼로 땅인데 꾸윤데 송구윤데 투규윤데 디게 삼로 땅인데 디게 제윤데 삼바다 계란 정어스 제와 잡지 다 차용도 있는 생각 강에 세기도 있어야지.
No. So what he's saying is that when I think of you with such a magnificent appearance, speaking in such melodious tones, and speaking saying what, teaching the what do you call it, the extensive, middling, and summarized Perfection of Wisdom sutras, like the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra in 100,000 verses, and so forth. These are just just a few examples of what the Buddha taught. So when he's saying that when a reflection, just like a reflection appearing in a mirror, it's like a reflection of you, the Buddha, in all your glory, teaching, giving these teachings, such amazing teachings. When I think of that, when I recollect that, and you're recollecting your qualities of body, speech, and mind, and giving such very important teachings, then just that, in the same way that somebody who is tormented by fever, then the light of the moon will cool them and will dispel that suffering. So when I think of this, then somehow my grief and my feeling of grief at not having directly listened to teachings from you, it disappears. No.
차와이 동을 다시 신놈이 차와디 단다 디시고래 먼저 차와 첨부 유배 qabla 신도 차외력제 하고 서 차와 첨부 유배 qabla 먼저 AC에서 장모질에서는 차외 강에서 생리 기부저지 대부저지 것도 와 대부 어디는시 매는시 지나는 게 구송 도지 아니 윤대디게 semla 체윤도 삼바 아니 제메고는 이케랑게 만돌라 람드나 셰베 아니 타바토야기 탑 땡중기 인 람딘디지 송드 디야네도 트렌드 인베 가소래 딱 매나시 차송스 자스.
It's like, when we're feeling really hot and then you go into a building that has air conditioning, then suddenly you feel so comfortable, right? So it's like that. It's like medicine, isn't it, for the heat? And so just like that, Gyümé is saying that you showed us the method, you taught us the method the teaching on dependent arising, which confers liberation, which leads to liberation. And when I think about that, then it's like medicine for my mind that heals my grief. No.
Oh, that's exactly what Dinja Javajiri. That kind of so Tunda Javadi, Sanje Jesu Tene, Sanje Tene, and Dig Sanje Song Shabe, and Yamlen Digeti, and that Chikuyo about the Shikuyo, that Dembe Songbeg, and Demba Tembe Gone, Dembe Songbeg, and Chur Digeti, and Yamlen Digit Chikuyo about the Tango, Tunda Diri.
What we need to understand from these verses is that within recollecting the Buddha, then we need to actually, put into practice the meaning of what he taught. No.
What is it? That didn't deal on 60 together. That are made to Chuai, Lobsang Tia Mikepe, Q Peva Dashin, the number good to temperatures.
And we'll go on to the next verse where it says, this excellent system, most marvelous. Some individuals who are not so learned have entangled it in utter confusion, just like the tangled balbaza grass. No.
And the that are made to Chuai, Lobsang Tia, dig any this one got it. That and then you would forget that's on the gym then the choose soon in that are made to Chuai, Lobsang Tia, Mikepe soon what then Pungama Dagi any Pug Kebangama Namdi any Shizu Manguchi or what. Sooner Gomba Jeta Manguchi or what. Mikepe Sati, Pungama Dagi any Shizu Sooner to turn Geshe Jeta Manguchi or is. You're the inner young any around the Tanda Ranshi Mebala Junja Suja Namsha Tamje Gyümé Sha Tugu Yobadi Tanda Uma Tengu Lulava Ranshin Mebe Tene Chachi Namsha Sene Junja Namsha Tamje Gyümé the Sha Chokbati Tanda Uma Tengu Lude Interior de Tindrig in Meduchuva Tetra Medu Chua is that what this go. Tetra Medu Chua is Ranshin Mebala Junja Suja Namsha Tamje Gyümé the Sha Choba Tetra what's our method any Lobsang this Lobsang that are method to Lobsang Dian said this still not several chas one.
No.
That are method to Lobsang Dian said method to Lobsang what the Kalisana Ranshi maybe Tene do the devil Namsha Tamje Ruanam Tabaki Namsha Tamje Lobsang Dian.
So it says in verse 46, it says, this excellent system, most marvelous. So this excellent system, most marvelous, it's the system of the prasangikas within which, while on the one hand, everything is completely devoid of any existence by its own nature, still cause and effect function perfectly, that, or let's say that the whole setup of cause and effect, or actions and agents and objects and so forth, is completely fit together. There's no sort of like contradiction. Nothing. These work completely well together, quite completely viable together. So that's what it's talking about. This, when it says this excellent, most marvelous system. No.
Wow, Tedder made to joy Lobsang, Lobsang Tians, Lobsang Botian, Mikebe Jews, Mikebe Jews said, Ranshi Mebana, Jundig Namsha Tamje, Page, Chajanamsha Tamje, Tebe, Lobsang Dig, any 전다 마셰깅이 아니 미케바사도 오데레 와
Now when no
오데레
no. And then when it says some individuals who are not so learned, this is talking about people who, well, basically they're not able to see how things could at the same time be empty of any existence by their own nature and yet still function in terms of cause and effect. No.
미케베 끼우 다딜라 미케베 끼우디 소레스는 그 개방하면 제르모지 마페 옹을 개방하면 가시기 다 강가다 말에 그 개방하면 가시기 동리가 된 제시 잡단라 아니 menjawa mangbo rigba tanan ge gole jeshe mangbo jawa de yoris.
And when he says individuals who are not learned, what he's talking about is some of his predecessors in Tibet, earlier Tibetan masters, who were not able to understand this point and were not able to see how, not existing by its own nature, being empty and cause and effect and so on, could function together. You used mistaken reasoning, false reasoning to, come to their conclusions about the meaning of what the Buddha taught. No.
미케베 배바 자신도 세시도와
No.
근데 이게 되는 땀 미케베 기우 아니 전다 menjawa mangbo deshe gyamdo선 deshe gyabdan디 배바 자신도 디베레 그러와 배바 자신도 나바군도 증거치스 배바 자신도선 짜지게 배바 자사 짜지게 명리샤 그러와 짜디 코란 도스티드 삼파 증니 파도 도스 증니 기기 유서와 디는시 배배 자디 파도 축밤 증버스는 땅으로 찌든 파도 큐니 뭐고 디치기 계단 주사리 배배 자는시 아니 산지 좀데 공부도 파도 중니 베데 증제 아니 고마마 저거도 넘버군도 증버체스
No. And then it says about the various ways in which they explained the Buddha's teaching. So he says, have entangled it in utter confusion, just like the tangled balbaza grass. Well, so firstly, regarding the analogy, so this balbaza grass, it's a type of grass that the way that it grows, it's all kind of like tangled up, all kind of like mixed up. And so in there, so it's talking about these scholars who completely get tangled up with in the meaning of the Buddha's teachings, somehow completely mix up the meaning of the Buddha's teachings. No.
어디 남바군도 증벌체스 어디 디직제 단 디기 또 가르친 거로서는 교육의 개방하만 남지 이니 소로제 공부 짜단들라 타치도 이지 메시 바르스 이지 지주 이지 메시 바라 아니 자가르 케베기 슝리야 뚝제 아니 가소라 따디 제수 창고고리스 자가 케베 슝로 콩뚝제 제수 창고고리 전단님부 데리 와 루상티야 제대로메도 지베 루상보티 교육의 개방하만 남지 아니 제시 잠에다 마무슈시 장용도스 디 잡페베 잔난시 파조 충립 전달 제시 잡다도 충립 제시 잡도스 디 제다 표현 개방하마다 슝치고를 따줘야 말 디콩투사디 자가 케베게 슝하마도 미탄에 디지에서 전에 아니 먼저 슝 된다듯이 되네 공발령 오래서 어디서
Really what he's saying is that those earlier Tibetan scholars, their commentaries should not be 100% relied upon. In other words, don't just look at them. Really what you need to do is look at the authentic teachings of the great Indian masters. Those are mainly who you should be following. No.
단다 제르모제 코란양 그봐 제르모제 코란양 그게 롭정 제베 걸라 아니 그 중징이 지라야 대제니 타준의 딘데 제바 마임바 슝으로 슝루 마운트 리벨람도 스티블라 탄다 장엘레 신님부기 챙기도에 슝루 마운트 리벨람도 양 냐와 만댕원 버토바이 윤데 초기 미메도 메장 배제 또버면 네디니 사치요리 단다 딱한다 슝 망보 퇴바점기 차샤 요마리 아니 리벨 리벨 치고를 땀바던지 차샤 요마리 간다 디제드 강가 초고 그래 슝루 망도 퇴바다 리벨은 냐와 망도 토바 리벨에 간에 겨바다 아니 나로그 윤데데 야고요바 디제 강가 순간 좀니 아니 그게 슝고 된다 시고야 개체물이 제름 좀 코나야 아니 베 디제 깔에 망보 잡니 찍을 차샤바 마이바 아니 자가 개베 슝래야 두제 아니 도스는 깔에 망보 잡아 인스디 송거다.
In fact, Gyümé is talking about the way he himself studied and practiced, because he himself, and this is something that he touches upon in his Dangélik Nyingpo, his commentary, which distinguishes between the sutras of definitive meaning and what do you call it, provisional meaning according to different schools of tenets. So he makes the point that he himself wasn't satisfied to study just one or two or three texts. He studied very widely, and he says that's not enough. You need to put a lot of effort, a lot of work into reasoning, logical analysis, and that's also not enough. You need a combination of those, and also you need to combine that with practice. So this is his advice to us, essentially. No. Then for verse 47, seeing this situation, I strove with a multitude of efforts to follow after the learned ones and sought your intention again and again. No.
Chudi in Kasa, Chudi Tone said Odiri, Jerimbochigi, Hungamegi in the Kebanamji, Shungu Gomba Treju to Tones, Chudi Tones. The Temple Mebachi, Hainsana called Shungu Gomba Chiji Maloba the Ma Jayo Marwa, Tajin Timba, Hungamadagi, Shungu Gomba Tratandi, and Bell. 자 배반은 시파도 전달 총리 제시 제거도 쓰라고 디 제시 잡단 데 토네스 수디 토네스 아니 제르모저 코랑 가르쳐면서 나게 니스 그러봐 수디 토네 나게니 배바 투미 켜봐 있다 공도 쉬고는지 얘기 깔려 망보 잡는 아니 그게 가르쳐 그래 배바 투미 거네 아니 포유지 개배 슝 전주 중요의 슝기 제수 타네스 어디서
So this is verse 47, right? So he's saying, when he says seeing this situation, what he's telling us is that he became aware that the commentaries by the earlier Tibetan masters were not really trustworthy. He could see that somehow they were completely mixed up about the Buddha's teachings, like it said, in the verse before about the balbaza grass all tangled up. So he saw that, and therefore, what he says is, what I did was I worked very hard to understand the meaning of the great Indian masters to see what they had to say about the Buddha's teachings. No.
Beba to me keba jesu chani chujini gomba yang da yang to serwa chu tomba shete to bakir ni kale mambu jani to song konsu chini kale mambu jani tomba chunde de cherangi ini gomba tenjung samme todi ini yani yang do pageti yani yang do jas yani yang do ini page sheba yins odiso wata ta kanda tanda chin deshi chinji malo be jaba yins odiso wata.
No. And so in the rest of the verse he's telling us how he worked hard to understand the teachings of the learned ones, the great masters of India, and in this way what he's telling us is that what he's saying is that through his efforts he's now been able to explain the meaning of the Buddha's teachings unmistakenly. No.
Oh, this is that then that dig so carry chije de ke carry shege de sona so tunda to ta poyi dagar ke keba pabe yi ni pindita pendu namjong to pendu chutin songo wa den jangoro mo o tinde ni keba pindita dije de ke shungla ya jesu tan shungla la ko is odi songo ta poyi ke kebe jesu chango ba.
And what Rinpoche Lama Tsongkhapa is telling us is that in our own endeavors, in our own studies, we need to follow the teachings of the great Indian masters. And when he says great Indian masters, so that would mean like the texts that were written by the 17 masters of Nalanda that we often hear about. So this is what he's talking about.
That deal man sijede. Tezeranshi deba yes, right? Nikasa tezeranshi deba shuma thala jambana chijir tezum dawa yin dagi yin kundu tunsa atre.
And then he says in verse 48, at such times as I studied the numerous works of both our own and other schools, my mind became tormented ever more, constantly by a network of doubts. No.
That tezeranshi debayi said randa shin rande de shindi devas yorwa. Teze ta tajin de sumbarwa Rinpoche ge ni tombachumde de kerang tenju ko tönde in ma chiji maloma yana yandu shigi yus sumbarwa. Sheba teze ni rande dang shindi is teze rangshin deba is odisungwar karsore rande umaba dang shindi ngobo mawa shindi ngobo mawa manji ji shung teze rangshin deba shungman dala jangba nas rande umaba dang shindi ngobo ini shung 망볼이야 아니 십도 심주체니 장반나스 슈마달라 장반나스 어디리 대제랑시 대바이 슈마달라 장반나스.
No. So let's look at the beginning of that. So at such times as I studied the numerous works of both our own and other schools, so as it's indicated in the translation when it says our own schools, that means the middle way school, and then other schools would be the systems of tenets of the realists. So you've got the middle way system of tenets, and then the other ones are called realists. Yeah. So when he studied the numerous works of those, is what he's talking about. No.
다 슈망볼을 보게 딱 제치는 장윤도 삼바 아니 슈망달라 좀 치질 태좀 자와이 다기니 군도서 아니 다 슈망볼 다랑데데 신데가 제시 잡다 망고 쉬우지요로 봐 송라도 공부만 제시 잡다 망고 쉬우지요 봐인데 이게 될 심주치는 장윤도 삼바 다 뒤나네 디제디 셰샤바는 덤베고 공부 타동운에 가래나 삼네 아니 그게 당보 태송 그 자와든데 레송스 봐 당은 윤거가 빼자 당보 때가 발로 주로 디제 당운에 전에도 가래나 삼에 태송 그 자와지 레송스 태송 자와 레베 가라 아니 셈나라 다기니 군도 동수야 돼 다 가래지는 셈마 다 가래는 셈 가서 판바 쓰고 왜 너 판바 쓰고 그래 어다 디자부치 차송스 this is what
yeah, so he's saying, okay, so I studied the numerous works of the Middle Way and the other schools, and he says my mind became tormented ever more constantly by a network of doubts. What he means is that he studied these, the Middle Way texts, the texts of the realists, and in the beginning at least, he was just couldn't work out so what really did the Buddha mean. And in fact, it's a little bit like when we ourselves study, we receive this teaching and that teaching, we read this and that text, and you kind of end up scratching your head and wondering, so what actually did the Buddha mean, that kind of thing. So, like that, and almost like a feeling of defeat, like kind of having, almost a feeling of, defeat, lost, defeat.
다기니 군도 동시에 다 디기 변주지 숭기 셰쇠라야 menjawa 망보 여바디 숭거 전단인부터 데리 야가기 파베유지 변디다 망보 여러와 대징어도 가르치는 야가 파베유는 숭로 콩 두고 그래서 깨지듯이 셰러와 보유지 야 야가 파유지 변주지 숭라야 제시 잡다 밑에 망보 쉬우지 요리스 어디 숭거다 go to go to yours.
So the thing is that he's already said what we need to do is we need to somehow follow or trace our understanding back to the great masters of India. Well, the thing is, when you look at the teachings of the great masters of India, they also have so many different ways of explaining things, and so it's like, almost like it's almost like your brain explodes kind of thing. It's just so, it can be quite overwhelming, until you've really got it.
DJ. That the Oma CJ de la, that the Chixungor. Chuji Lame Tebe, Yoda Mebe tap on the Chishin Jero Lumtemba, Ludu Shunu Kunde Cell said.
Then we go on to verse 49. The night lily grove of Nagarjuna's treatises. Nagarjuna, so anyway, that's how he wants to do it. The night lily grove of the treatises of Nagarjuna, whom you prophesied, would unravel your unexcelled vehicle as it is, shunning extremes of existence and non-existence. No.
Pendu Shun Shedam and Mabujo go to Yinaya, Chuji Lame Tegbesus, Yinaya, and the Tomba Chundin de Chirangi, Shungu combating it, the Mambo Shuji, Tina and Muna Tane de combat dringing Tanda Muna Tane decision at Suris, give the Suris, Suris, and the Chumden de Chirangi, any Karsoe. Chuji Lana Mebeki, any Tepa Chimbu, Lana Mebe, Tepa Chimbura, Chuji Lame, Tegbesus, Lame, Tepa Chimbu, any Tanda, Geshe, Gangadis, Yobadam, Chuji Lame, Tegbesul, and Karsa, Yoda Mebe,
Tapante.
Oh, Yoda Mebe Tapande, Yobada Meba, Yobat. Tata meva chedari rwa dinini tapani enpage yoda meba tapande gomba chita wachino nunju tsani meba drenge di gombuludu rishas odisonda.
And so here Rinpoche has already talked about how, sort of gives you quite a headache trying to work out even what these Indian masters meant and so forth. So he says, so even though it's like that, actually, if we look at those masters, and there are many of them, and ask ourselves, so which one really got what the Buddha taught? Which one can we really count on? Amongst all those, which is the main one, the one who we can really count on? And so it says, where does it say this? Yeah, in the third line. So someone who has prophesied to unravel the unexcelled vehicle. Unexcelled vehicle here means the Mahayana, who would explain it really as it is. So in such a way that he completely avoids the extremes of existence and non-existence. So the extreme of existence is the what we call the eternalist extreme, and then the extreme of non-existence is the nihilist extreme. Just a different way of putting it. So the one who explained the Buddha's teachings in that way, precisely, without the slightest error, is Nagarjuna. No.
Shunglu kunde celes, lutuji shung karina resana, and Tawashira, Tawashira, so Rizo Tuyorwa, Rizonga, the Rizo Tu Latanjor, and Tanashi, Dokunetiwa. Shunglu, Lutu, Shunglu kunde, Lutu, Shunglu Suresana, Rizo Tudan, Dokundutiri. Or D. Digitiration, as what this
one. Yes, so Nagarjuna, who was prophesied by the Buddha himself, the Buddha himself said this is what he's going to do. And so then when it talks about Shungluk, so yeah, Nagarjuna's treatises. So what are those treatises? Then the answer to that is the set of treatises called the 6 treatises on the actually 6 treatises of reasoning on the middle way. It means something like Umarisotu. And on top of that, the Dokunuduba, which would be the Sutra Samuchaya, or like some like compendium of sutras. No.
What is it? Ludu Shunu, Unde Cells, Unde Cells, Min Karingo. That you are not suggested. Timmy Chembe Kingo, Sora Kala, Tomejo, Tanzini, Mubase, Lome, Jugar, Sinu Bas.
And we go on to verse 50, where it says, illuminated by the garland of white lights of Chandra's well-uttered insights, Chandra, whose stainless wisdom orb is full, who glides freely across scripture's space. No.
That di Karsungu to Sana, di Cheju Shi Sungu, Tanda, Timmy Chembe Kingo, Drama Cheju Shi. Cheju Shi Sungo, Cheju Shi the Karsana, Tanda did Lutu Shunu Kunde Seche. That Lutu Gombachi, Samotenju, or Geshe Geshe, Gomba, Chinji Malova, Hakongedi, Suresana, Dijela, Timmy Chembe Kingo Jesa, Tiki Sungo, into Pande Davati Chate. Lutu. Timmy Shunu Kunde says Luduji Rizo Tudan, only Dokunato Soji Shungu Tenjung to Geshe Jabate, Chinjimalova Hakunga, the Nanying and the Suresana, and Timmy Chembe Kingo Jes, the Samba, the Cheju Sungo. Samuel turned out Geshe Jabala, Madoba the Lobato, Timameva Chembe, Kingo of the Javasa. Several chance on
it. Did the Juma Songa?
Timmy Chimbe Kingo Jason, the Gombuluji, any Shung, forget Geshe Jabati, 친지 말로봐 제맘해봐 신경기 아니 직제 제주 직들이 제맘해봐 제마들이
the Gyümé, because the
재미 쳔배 갱고르게
and the Gyümé can be Kiko said it in Notani Meba, the Ludugi Shunluk, the Chinjimalo, but the Dejigabi.
하공에 하공에게 인 제맘해봐 챙경기 쳔바드 직제 제주 신난의 당보도 되리
No. Now, in this verse, I see it's talking about 4 particular attributes. It doesn't mention right at the beginning that that who it's talking about is Chandrakirti, but that's who it's talking about. So in the first line, actually, I think the order is different in the English. So let's see. Okay, so I'm afraid we have to go to the third line for the first attribute. So Chandra, whose stainless wisdom orb is full. Okay, so the stainless wisdom orb is full. That means that's talking about one attribute of Chandrakirti, which is that he has a flawless, unmistaken understanding of wisdom, of the meaning of Nagarjuna's teachings, which refers to those texts I just mentioned, the 6 treatises on the middle way, and then also the the compendium of sutras. So it's talking about him having that kind of wisdom, the wisdom that understands, the unmistakably the book, the Nagarjuna's teachings. No.
제맘해봐 쳔배기 직제 나는 좀해봐 쳔배 쳔바드 직제 이 소라 칼라 토미 교수는 소라디 사바 동반이 뜬배 소라 자체와 남지림바 뜬배 소라 망보 여러와 사바다 자체와 뜬배 소라지 소라다 남가다 보스는 망보 여러 기자와 남가데 자체 몇 개지 시겨와 소라 칼라스 토미 교수에서 진짜게 사바다 자체와 뜬배 소라라 소라게 전다 아니 체바 쩌바 좀바메발 아니 토바명이 제주 좀좀로 토바메바 찍으리다.
Then let's see. So then the second attribute comes up in the 4th line. So it says glides freely across scripture's space. So what this is talking about when it says space, so space is something vast, right? So here it's talking, this is like an analogy for the vast meaning, space-like meaning that's revealed in the profound teachings. In other words, the teachings on the profound and the teachings on the vast aspect of the state, the stages of the path. So you've got the profound side, emptiness, and then the stages of the path, which is the extensive side. So that meaning, that meaning, which is the meaning of these scriptures that it's talking about here, who freely glides across scripture space. So it means the vast meaning revealed in those scriptures. So it's saying that Chandrakirti, so it says freely. Okay, so freely is okay. So he is able to explain, teach, debate, and also compose texts explaining this vast space of those scriptures that freely. In other words, it actually told me it would be like fluently, no obstruction. No.
소라 칼라 토미 교수 직제와 다 탄진인게 멤버스야데 나 코란게 지마메바 소라게 전다 지마메바 쳔바 아니 시엔라 쳔바도 저바도 좀발라 토바메바 내가는 시 탄진인게 멤버스야데 때네 따바점지 먼저 땡중기 아니 야나 또베 따바점시네리 때네 따바점지 주 디게 내주디 셰발라 시에니 이 파르비게 이 따다의 체대가 로도 세네바 탄진인기 멤버스 와 따바의 체베 탄진세데 따다다 체다 짐바스고와
mm,
론도바도 고바데베게 로도 망보죠와 디게게 명바디 파 세퉁이 전진이 그 명바 셀세 제주직들이
Tajin Yimnumba cell. So where's that?
한진시대 따다다 체다
Yeah, Ale Okoditi Injidi Wadadi. So actually, for the third attribute, it's actually in the same verse in the Tibetan, but you know the way it works with the order of the English and Tibetan. So actually, you find this in the first line of the next verse, according to the English, where it says, "Who dispels the darkness of extremist hearts." So what this is talking about? Okay, we talked about the two extremes, right? You've got the eternalist extreme of like true existence, and then the nihilist extreme, which is the extreme of like non-existence. Then there are then there is the mind grasping, believing in those two extremes. So what he's saying here is that he's describing yet a third attribute of Chandrakirti. So it's not just that he has this stainless understanding, stainless wisdom. It's not just that he glides freely in his explanations of those vast teachings, but also because of his understanding of dependent arising, or maybe we could put it, because of his understanding of how things are imputed through depending, because he has that understanding, he's able to eliminate these mistaken minds grasping at these two extremes in the minds of others. No.
탄제닝게 명바 셀제 데네 로메 조거 신뉴바 스디소 로바르마 와세치도와 로바르마 와세아디 디르와 베나 단당한조 랑게 체니게 마주바 랑신게 마주바디 마주베테네 아니 조다 데벨럼샤 탐제 테기리스 기제 시기어와 시기어레 다양 좀더 오마기 랑신게 마주바는 자제 탐제 룽금 마레스 기제 시기어레 와 랑신게 마주바라 자제 탐제 아니 룽금 마레 테기 마레스 망에게 로버마 와서 어디시고 왔다 로버마 왔다 망부 로버마 가서 된다 로메 주거스도 와 로메 주거스도 좀 까말스기어 와 남기 까메 초스도 까마 망부 시우지 차딩 고디 데데버도 까메 초스기어 와 근데 로버마에 망부 초딩이 망부 시우지 왜 깨져 와 딘디게 로버마에 추스네면도 로버마에 초디게 강가 니 뻔 거기 시주노마 지베고네 시주노마 로메 주거 쓸노마 사야데리
릭베고네라
지베고네 시주노마
Now let's see if that the fourth one is also, the fourth one is also in the next verse, I'm sorry to say. So you have to look at the second line of verse 51 here, where it says, outshines the constellations of false speakers. So false speakers, that refers to those who would say, unlike the Madhyamika system, where it's completely fine that it's cause and effect functioning is completely consistent with not existing from its own side in that system. There are others, though, who don't adhere to that system, who would say, well, if nothing exists by its own nature, then there's no way that cause and effect could possibly work. Nothing's gonna function. It just doesn't fit. So people who say that, okay, so this is what it's talking about when it says false speakers. And constellations means, so, we're not talking about just one star, but, you look up into the sky and you just see there's vast numbers of stars in the sky. So just like that, hosts, vast numbers of what do you call it, mistaken speakers, false speakers. Is that what it said? Constellations of false speakers, yes. So he's able to outshine all of them. No, so I just make sure I got everything. Yeah, that's it. Yes, no.
This is what
No.
Jeju City, Timmy Chimbe Kingo Jes, Timame by Chimbe in Chemba the Damba. No, Jeju Chik DJ, any Sura color Tommy Joe said the summer, Saba the Jachivek, any sort of Geshe Gala, Setu Tomla and Tobameba, Chiche. Jeju Niva DJ, any sort of Tanzania Mumba says, Suma, Tata the Chedani, any Handa Tenju to Geshe Jabala Tene, in Tata the Chedama, Mumbati Setubadi, Sumche. Lome Jugar Sinu Basade, and Kandara Shungu Tunda, Chinjilo, Geshe Loba, Dipa, Siginuma, Cheju Shida Demas, or did so.
And so this has been talking about this verse, although, as I said, it runs into the next verse with the English. It's talking about 4 special features, for special qualities, let's say, of Chandakirti. One is his stainless wisdom. So you have all the explanation that went with that. So his stainless wisdom. Then the fact that number 2 is the fact that he's able to use the words of the translation, glide freely in the space of the meaning, the profound and vast meaning of the scriptures, explaining them, what do you call it, freely explaining, freely debating, and freely, composing text about them. And then the third one, how he's able to dispel the 2 false views, false ideas of the grasping at the 2 extremes in the minds of others by through the understanding of dependent arising. So that's the third one. Then the fourth one is the way he's able to outshine all of those false speakers. No.
This is that Dioma Tigdela, Panden Dave Leshi, Yogar Choma Sechabas.
And then we're looking at the first 2 lines of verse 51. So so this, I think we have to go up to the 2nd line of the previous verse where it says of Chandra's well-uttered insights. And then and then followed by the first line of verse 50 where it says illuminated by the garland of white lights. No. So we're looking at those 2 lines. No.
Jaga Pabe Pindu Shunle Geshe Janga Mantama Mambo Shoes those, and Gotomia those. Yinaya, any Tombachunde, the Chenangi, and the Combachinjamo over Trengedi, Talana Mebe Tapachimbo, Combachinjamo Trengedi, on Gomboluto de Shas, Gomboluto Shun, Umari so Tuta, Dokune to the Shas, Tig any Gomba Ma Deshe any Yangedi. Cheju si that the Panden Davegi, any Panden Dave Lexi. Cheju si that the Panden Dave Lexi, Penadeshe 6 years at Chigri. Deshe 6 years at a river to Jube Java. Panden Dave Lexi is a Lexi Sitoa, Panden Dave some Shabe Lexi, and Deshe 6 years at. In river to Jube Javata, Shijabe Javata. Uma Jube Sande, Rangera, or that DJ Shun, Yokabe Tewas, Yokar Tewas, Yokabe Tawan and Shipage, Shuma, Dusma, Tawan and Shiyotaba, DJ Digi, any Matobato Lobato Kanga, Segidus, Seta, DJ Tamba years, Jeremy Koran just translated, Shun DJ Tamba years.
Gyümé is talking then about who he himself relied upon amongst the Indian masters. So what he's told us is that when who you have to go to is the great Indian masters, and yet it can be confusing also when you look at their teachings, because they have such a variety of ways of explaining what the Buddha taught. And so he tells us that amongst all of those, the one that he really primarily relied upon was Nagarjuna, and so he's the one that really understood and was able to explain flawlessly the meaning of the supreme vehicle sutras, in other words, the Mahayana sutras and Mahayana teachings. And the text that we have for that are his 6 treatises on the middle way, reasoning on the middle way, and also his compendium of sutras. And then who was the best at explaining Nagarjuna was the glorious Chandrakirti. And when it talks about his where does it say, the well-uttered insights, he says, well-uttered insights. Well, that's talking about his scriptures, the scriptures written by Chandrakirti. So for him, we have his so the Prasanapada, I think, Prasanapada, the clear meaning commentary. It's called Clear Meaning. And then there's his commentary on Nagarjuna's 60 verses. Then there's also his commentary on Aryadeva's 400 verses on the middle way. And then there's also his Madhyamakavatara, the entering into the middle way, or commentary on the middle way. And besides that, his own commentary on that commentary, on the Madhyamakavatara, which is referred to often as the self-commentary or auto-commentary or the Bhashya. No.
Oh, did you?
So I missed something out on the next page. So he relied on those scriptures because in that way, one is able to clear up any kind of, when there are things you don't understand, then you can solve that. With the mistaken understanding, also misconceptions, I mean, that's also dispelled. No.
Oh, that didn't that Rinpoche any Gombulutu down, Pandan Dave, Leshi, Jesu Tani, any that some attention to the Martish Java is, this just Tambayins or this one.
And so Jeremiah is saying that his own explanation depended on, or for this explanation, he relied upon the commentaries of Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti.
Taya, Jeremiah, Chida, Jagaraki, Pavek, Pendita Mambo, Pena, Loven Shivala, Junju Zunga, Loven Shivala, Tanashi, Loven Sanje Janre, Tanashi Loven Pabala, DJ Jesu Tangio is. DJ Dia Una Taneke, Jagaki Pendita, Zomasone, Sem Pendita, said the Demba, in the chat there. DJ Tanayan Sigdela. Gomulu Bande Dama, the Shenda killing in Mavis of the Yansam to Kodio Mali, Chidan Bandan Dawada, Shiwalata, the Jedi Jesu, so the Sanjay and the Jes, Taludu Shingi Keva Chimucha, the Jedi Jesu Tamba is. Yina Tanda de Pandan Dave, Lexi Sag, 60 Lago with Jumza Kares, Pandan Dawa Tabe, Mise, Gomulutu, Shuma, Tabala, Gasha Mambukon, any Shuntayo is. Keva Shenda Mendawa.
Gaksha, Gabashan,
Shenlu Gaba, Ranlu Shabik, Namsha Mango, Pandan Davegi, Chidan Lubin Sanje Janda Shivala, DJ Jesu Tangi or is Yine Tanda de Tentative Pandan Davelixi, and Dimiskani, Pandan Daval Labdo Haresina. Pandan Davegi, Gomolutu, Shun Deshe Japanti, Shenlu Gaba, Ranlu Shaba, Namsha Ripa Mamukone. Gasha to me when any Lutu to combat 10 Baguba Inza, Mixie and Pandenta Village is what it.
Now, it's important to understand that even though Gyümé Lobsang Kappa only talks about Nagarjuna and Chandakirti, there were other perfectly qualified masters that explained the teachings of Nagarjuna, and Lobsang Kappa did actually, follow them and rely upon their teachings. So, for example, Shantideva, Buddhapalita, and Aryadeva. So it's not that he didn't rely upon them. So still the question would arise, well, in that case, why particularly single out Chandakirti? And the answer to that is that Chandakirti, more than anybody else, really specifically made a point of refuting the opponents of the opposing opponents of Nagarjuna, and also very clearly explaining Nagarjuna's own views. No.
This is why that Pandin Devil Shiji said the Gyümé did this. That didn't deal with Chigedela, Chigani, Lamir Tingy, Thomas, Dagi aging is Lamir Tingy, Thomas.
No, Lamir Tingy, the Thomas said Dagi, so top. Yeah, so then we're back on track. The last two lines of 51, where it says, when through my teacher's kindness I saw this, my mind found a rest at last.
DJ Sutani, that Samotin to DJ Hakone, Chimano Hakobu, also when DJ Sutangi years, this summer. That in there Hakova the Harichin country Sakova and Lame Tingy Toy said Dagi in a Sutos this over. Lame Tingy and Lama de Jizu Jambe Shan, Jizu Jambe Jane, any Hondo Yege Harsore. Lutuji, any Tomachum de Obachi Malova, Jange, Lutuche. Lutugi, any Madumas and Lukti, any Shinjimalova, Geshe, Talu Sanje, and the Pandandawa, Pandandaveg, any several Zabati, any Jizun Jamang, Lama Jizu Jamang, Curtin Latani, any yet Chazan, several shares. Dagi aging Lame Tingy Toy says, Jijame, the Tuji curtain la tenny, yet near to the chatham, Dawsons, Lame Tingy. Tinda, some Jeremy Koran, Dagi inning as a tongue, somebody of the village house, said, Jijame to you yet turned that. Non Tritsan, but Chinjimal of Hakova in the Tanga, Lord de Chonson said, or the rich soon.
No. What these two lines mean is that, so Lobsang Kappa has already said how he understood the teachings of Nagarjuna, who explained the Buddha's thoughts unmistakenly, and also he relied on, followed, and understood the teachings of Chandakirti, who and actually also of Buddhapalita, who perfectly explained and understood and explained the ideas of Nagarjuna. So he understood them, he understood what they taught, and he followed them, and he gained insight. He actually gained realization. He's telling us he got the realizations. And then the question comes up, well, like, how did he get that? So he's telling us through depending upon his guru, the kindness of the guru. So who is his guru? that would be the perfect, pure Manjushri. No.
Oh, to say that the 60 lame tinge to the so to say the 60 the tunda zong anzo ya ta lamden da khari chi go resna ni kiran zo un samo tongba ni ge tuen sheber de ge duna ani page lama ji ya gewe shin tenche en tela ten en jujun jame no so wa ta ba ta dinde che ne ani samo tongba ni tuen de she go go ma do ta ga sa samo ta ne ma ta ba tö바다 삼바산의 마셔봐 동반이 시에서야지 용구 말에 땅도 아주 진주 졸라 구주 뒤땡겨 봐 예외신이 수신도 땡고 담바스 디송도 봐 디게디 라메티 코란인지 제르모저 코란이네 다가서 시마서 깔려 망고 잡 지주 자매는 소화면라 답 깔려 잡 디투지까지는 때니 니 동반이가 된디지 시에서 키란도 이나양 마오바나 깔려 잡 kalya mambo jagore shung tagore shung tase shung dia nunchu meba shung chil tagore dil tene ene jizu jambe yang la sobe en lama gewe shinyen la ene susoge ene tenche en tela tene en somo tongba ni tene shego res odi songyo.
And so it was through his kindness that eventually Lama Tsongkhapa gained the realization, and he expresses how in this way at last somehow he found ease of mind. And so actually this is advice to us. What Lama Tsongkhapa is saying is, this is what I did, so if you want to realize, if you want that realization, the realization of the realization of emptiness, then what you need to do is you need to rely upon a fully qualified a fully qualified teacher. You need to make requests to Manjushri, and you need to listen to teachings, study them. You need to reflect on the meaning. You need to really work very hard at this, because this is what Lama Tsongkhapa did, and that's how you do it. You have to work very hard, and then, and the scriptures you study, should be themselves flawless teachings, unmistaking, scriptures, and then you too will be able to get this realization. No.
What does this? That the Jema Sixetilla. Dagi Jingas to watch it. That Zaba Kule Sungini, Zaba Choyin, Heani, Tini Injir Kavain, Dile Sanje Jitan Jus at what did it?
Now, verse 52, he says, of all your deeds, your speech is supreme, your deeds of speech. Within that too, it is this very speech. So the wise should remember the Buddha through this teaching of dependent origination. No.
That Zaba Kule Sungini, Zaba Choyin Sadi, that Tomba Tuombo, Kenango, Kusutu, Zaba Mambo Shujoris, Zaba Patumabajioris. Tin Zaba Kunles, Zaba Tamjeles, actually, Zaba Mambo Shujo, Zaba Tamje Nane, and the Sungi Zaba di.
What this is saying is there are there are so many deeds, is that what he says, deeds of the Buddha in terms of the body, speech and mind, and of all those, the ones which are the most important are the deeds of speech.
Tini Teani Tini Injiri Keva is Dile Sanje Jedentius. Teani Tini Injiri Sidusamba Sungi Zaba Zoin be Junzen Kares, Sungi Zaba Tela Tene, and around the Dujanum, Tabata Tamje Chamber Command, Tiber Zendi, so Sungi Zaba Tela Tene Tigio is what this one.
And the reason for that, why, in other words, the deeds of the Buddha's speech are the main ones, is because depending upon that, we, his followers, are able to are able to achieve. In other words, are guided to liberation and enlightenment. No.
Di khaisana sungi deba ma dujela chö tenbe ge nuba tela tene in dije chö dujanam ji chö de nyamnen chene in taba da tamje chembe da gomal tigiri mando ini digba da migewa do chü chuwa da dinde rungu mars ten in chemde de rangi dole sungyo res wa.
And so it's clear, isn't it, that the deeds of speech would be the main ones, because that that refers to teaching, and it's through teaching that we understand what to practice, and then by our own practice we are able to achieve liberation and enlightenment. And in fact, the Buddha himself said very clearly, there's a verse which refers to this, where it says that the Buddhas aren't able to wash away your negative karma like washing dirt away with water. No.
Ta dinde sungi jaba de zori yakshu re cho re songbari sungi jaba nane sungde la mangbo shibu yore ini zaba da jachi ve tumbe sung mangbo yore ine tina ne samo tenju go tumbe sungdi ta cho re kayesna koale tabala tenju go tuna tene tongmani sheku yore wa di mashina koale tasa yo ma 제가 tenju go tumbe enso sungdi cho re so.
And even amongst the, even though the deeds of speech, the teaching, is the most important, is supreme. In fact, there are many of those as well. You have the teachings about the profound, and there are the teachings about the vast. And it's the profound teachings that are the most important, because within the profound teachings, you have the teaching of the profound dependent origination. And through understanding dependent origination, you're able to understand emptiness. And without the understanding of emptiness, then there's no way to achieve liberation. No.
Teni injir dile sanje jiri ta digi ini sanje jesu tema asaji sanje jesu tema ta dil neju dije de samlo ta ini sanje onzu sam jesu tento yaji ngori yesu tisungo
tandi de tende chasang de
re di dije de tanda de ma samlo ta ini ta sanje jesu tema ro.
And by reflecting on the meaning of this particular teaching, or this dependent arising praise, then what you're doing is you're recollecting the Buddha. We talk about recollecting the three jewels, recollecting the Buddha, remembering the Buddha. So you're remembering the Buddha. No.
Oh, just that the end of the Rinpoche tended to be a tandacha. Samo tenju gune tembala tebegi ini tenda dena kandar jere moje korangi kale jabdan tenju gu ten cheda ata dije de kanga en tenju te kale jam en tenju te sheni ini tembala ya teba pita dije de chatan shung chatan chubari ba ta di wala ini jugdu ya shung jugdu ya de.
Up to here, Lama Tsongkhapa has been explaining dependent origination in the form of praise to the Buddha, and we have seen how through, by his own account, he worked very hard to understand dependent arising and emptiness, and that's up to now, and so. From now on in the text, there's like the conclusion. No.
That the streamline dilemma chain 6 years from the month in the Karchi.
No. Gengi Sumanajin the Jenajin the Dogon Sasane de Gyümé Dula.
No, Sana 야고도
두즈두가
도 단다 주주 제가 도
no no
와
no 지난주에는 디 탱제면 디 중내 야보다다 시다두가 이니 치치네 this
나 때문에 시다면도 야 지금
no
네 가르치고 있나면 섬스 와
no 도콘데 아니 겸이 둘라 no
나스나스
no 디기들 no
당 나와 죽도와 다 죽도단데 뜬데 제소라도 중조데 제외송라 잠바 미마시 내주줄라 좀에 결혼식 장소 침보텔라 제대로 식디
no and for the sort of like the summary or the conclusion first of all we have 54 which says since it is due to my teacher's kindness I have met with the teaching of the unexcelled teacher I dedicate this virtue too towards the cause for all beings to be sustained by sublime spiritual mentors. No.
다 뜬데 제소라도 중조데 쓰데서마 단 제르모죠 코란 다 또 좀 된데 그 제수트는 랍도 중다 와 차바체네 와 뜬데 제소라도 중조데 세부차송아
Actually, I read out the wrong verse. We're actually on verse 53. So following such a teacher and having become a renunciate, having studied the conqueror's words not too poorly, this monk who strives in the yogic practices, such is the depths of his reverence to the great seer.
제가 또 좀 된데 제수 전에 제르모죠 코란 랍도 중 와 랍도 중에 아니 라바숨지 냠네 주름지 라바 와 아니 띵이지 라바 시럽지 라바숨지 냠네 제네 아니 제외송의 장바 미미신스 제외송 랍도 중에 제외송스 좀 준데데 송라 장바 미미 바스도 삼아 깔레 제외 뉴뉴마이바 미멤바 잠스나 뉴뉴메 스타임 간다 깔레 망고 잡아 인송거 예외 송라 장바 미메시스 뉴뉴마이바 아니 라바숨지 냠네친 와 곰잠니 곰바 냠슬레 아니 냠레 제외 아니 gelon시스 gelon 다 샤르종아 발로사 잡아라니 소와 예외 송라 잠네 gelon시 장송 첨부텔라 제대로 그 장송 첨부 소리에서는 또 맞춤된 데라 아니 공도 시에스베기 윤데 데달라 때니 아니 인타바니 아니 그거 지기 위해서 다디 좀 봐보자 좀 어쩌는 거 그래 나 좀 맞춤된 데 제수 전에 자바체네 아니 로종 개외송의 장바 미미시 개외송 아니 로종 제아디 깔레 충 유뉴마이 봐 이제 제 아니 라바슨 냠레체 곰경에게 아니 내줘봐 아니 얘기 아니 또 좀 됐다 님 타발이 아니 그거거네 그거 지기 위해서 어디서 와
Following such a teacher and having become a renunciate, so Lama Tsongkhapa is talking about how he himself, following the Buddha, became a renunciate, became a monastic. Then, having studied the conqueror's words not too poorly means, literally not having studied the conqueror's words, the Buddha's teachings, with not a few difficulties. In other words, he worked very hard. He's actually telling us that he worked very hard to understand the Buddha's teaching. And then this monk who strives in yogic practices, and he also, this is telling us how he also didn't just study, but also meditated and practiced hard. And then he's talking about how he feels this deep reverence, deep respect for the Buddha. So when it says the great seer, Dangson Maharishi, so he's talking about the Buddha. Then after this, the next verse is dedication.
Sije Tambodala, Tombalana Mebe, Tembatang, Java Tedalame Tibe, Gewati and Rua Maluva, Sini Tambe to be Juru Satiri.
No. This one, actually, I've already read it out, but let's read it out again. Since it is due to my teacher's kindness, I have met with the teaching of the unexcelled teacher. I dedicate this virtue too towards the cause for all beings to be sustained by sublime spiritual mentors. No.
That digi, Sije digi Karit, one of the son, around the Drawa Simje Tamje, any Shini Tambegi, Shini Tambasu, Gyümé Yagoji, the Nipuge, Tuni, Jesu, Ziagi, Julia, one Nangur.
Well, in this verse, Lama Tsongkhapa is dedicating for us sentient beings to be guided and taken care of by sublime spiritual mentors. In other words, really, first-class teachers.
Tombalana Mebe, Tembatans, Tombalana Mebadi, Tombachum Dendece, and Tombachum Dending to Tembatans, Tombalana Meba, Tombachum Dending, Tembatang. Then Tetam no Masebe, any the Temba Timanti Jesu Tangegita, Samotenju, any turn to bet, Sanjik Temba Yorwa, Temba. Oh, Tinted Java. Java ti mazuta mazut dinjeji da tuba ti ini suka jinesina ini lame kadi nyaji la tene chu jabaris right lame kadi nyaji la jabaris dinda tusum je susa sabe gyawa khanyba ti Java ti da lame timbe gyawa ti as gyawa ti ngaro tusum de sabe gyawa tamje ini karsore Gyawati Roa Maluba, Tusul is a Gyawa Tamji and Roa Simje Tamji and Pagashini Lamdun Shini Tambachi in Pagajetu in Guru Toa shows or this one.
When it says the unexcelled teacher, that's talking about the Buddha, and then it says met with the teaching of the teaching of the unexcelled teacher would be the the teachings of the Buddha. So I've met the teachings of the Buddha, and so he's saying that this so how did this happen? How did this come about that I met with the teachings of the Buddha? Well, it was due to the kindness of my teacher. And so then he's saying, it's just, it's only through the kindness of my teacher. And so then when it says this virtue, he's talking about all of the virtue of the past, present, and future. That's what's being dedicated. And what's it being dedicated to? To all sentient beings. So it says all beings. Okay, so all sentient beings to be guided by and taken care of by, holy gurus in the future. No.
Dina Danda Gawangoya Dina Jerumuju Kunangi and the Peja Tendito Batsambe Gawachorwa, Tendito Peja di Zambe Gawatia and Roa Maluba Simjatamje, Shini Tamajo Judo shows or Dindichis.
Besides besides that, when it says this virtue, it refers to the virtue of Lama Tsongkhapa himself having composed these verses. No.
What is it? That these German suggested Penzi de Temba Siveta, Yando Lungi number Mishi, Tembe Nazushin, Tombala, Ijini Vatato Kawa shows.
Then verse 55, may the teachings of this beneficent one till the world's end be unshaken by the winds of evil thoughts. May it always be filled with those who find conviction. May it always be filled with, it must be the world anyway. May it always be filled with those who find conviction in the teacher by understanding the teaching's true nature. No.
다 니치제데 가르쳐서는 템발이야 다 산제게 템발라 줌제 시베고네 줌제 시베고네 아니 대바톤 그 줌제 시베고네 대바톤이 아니 간다라 사팅 다 잠불링기 사팅 용 나라 아니 줌제 시베고네 대바톤이 다 딘데게 개바딘데 아니 잠불링 다다 칸와 쇼스 디스멜은 중고 봐 정발라 아니 아주 대가서 몽대지네 대바지바 많이 봐 와 준제 시에는 대바 톱니 아니 잠불린 디간이야 딱 간다 템발라야 그거징에 로조징에 되게 개바되게 개바 다다 강 잠불린 용도 이제 강화 쇼 이제 장장 용화 쇼 melon 중고
This is a prayer for the world, the whole world to be filled with, in effect, scholars, experts, or like masters who have great faith in the Buddha's teachings, which is based on reason, not just blind faith, but true faith based on reasoning. Such masters who have achieved that faith through depending upon reasons, and have great respect for the Buddha and who study the Buddha's teachings. No.
로알야 펜버 쟁에 덤바 줌된 되게 템바디스 펜제티 템바앙 로알 펜버 쟁에 산제 줌된 되게 템바디스
No. So where it says the teachings of this beneficent one, so that means the teaching of the beneficent one is the Buddha. So it's talking about the teachings of the Buddha. No.
템바 시베탈 년도룽게 넘버 메시스네 다 산제게 템바티 다 잠불림 파게 똥바 마샤바도 와 시바타두고 파도 아니 파게 년도룽게 넘버 메시스도 다 가다 템발라 네바 칭에 망고 요르바 진데게 네바 마요와 와 네바 마요와 아니 파게 규릉부 네토바 쇼스 디송거
So this talking about like it's a dedication for those prayers, a dedication for those teachings to remain until the whole world is empty. In fact, until the whole of cyclic existence is empty, without having to face any kind of opponents that that deliberately want to harm the Buddha's teachings. And so may they, in other words, it's a prayer for those teachings to remain for a very long time. No.
원주 가르쳐는 땜바디 산제게 땜바디 유릉분 내가 쇼세야데 melon 자고에 준제 가르치나 땜뱅 너 주신에서야 지도와 니기 땜뱅 너 주 땜뱅게 내단데 신네 그래서 땜바디게 로심제 탐자를 팽기요 마스 펜베게 내주디지디 신네 땜바디 유릉분 내가 쇼 melon 자고에 마도 디양 네 땜바인상 안주 땜바인상 유릉분 내가 쇼 디디게 말이시 땜뱅 너 주신에서야 그런도 제바치네 산제게 땜바디게 랍자 가르자고도 산제게 땜바디 로심제 탐자를 펜베게 아니 먼저는 깔로 가르는 것도 이 팽기 여바인자 펜버쟁에게 템바티 잠불린 디나라 유릉고 내가 쇼스잖아 먼저는 디자기 그래서
You see, the prayer is for the teachings of the Buddha to remain a long time, and this isn't a prayer that we will make like we're Buddhists, so there's our Buddha, so somehow we want, so just because of that, we want the Buddha's teachings to last a long time. No, it's not like that. The reason that he says here, filled with those who find conviction in the teacher by understanding the teaching's true nature. So what this is talking about is an understanding that the Buddha's teachings are so helpful for sentient beings, and therefore may those teachings which are so helpful for sentient beings last a long time in the world. No.
겨울은 무치게 대슈 피고 와리 겨울은 무치게 대슈 피고 와리 겨울은 무치 꾸지 여름 못 내와 쇼스고 가서는 겨울은 무치게 다 뭐라는 소리야 남들 망고신는 게 팬도 유배 남들 망고신는 게 와리 되는 실람을 서버 무치 하시는 대슈 피고 와리 라면서 그런 그런 슈로지 아니 가래서는 먼저야 남들다 랍자다 되야 올는 것도 뒤인자 꾸지 샤베 때로지 쓰면은 저것도 와서 뒤도 뺏 총발이 산제게 때마 대양 For
example, it's quite natural if there's somebody in the world that's really helping people, really serving, doing a lot for people, then quite naturally we say and we think, oh, if only this person could have a really long life. Because we recognize that they're so helpful, so it'd be really, for that reason we see that it's very good if that person were to, live long, like with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. We have these long life pujas, don't we, where we're requesting him to have a long life. And why is that? It's because we understand that he's the one that guides us, that's guiding us, that's taking care of us. So of course, we want him to, for that reason, to have a long life. Similar, we understand, we know that he's the one that's guiding us, he's the one that advises us, he's the one that teaches us. So of course, that's why we want these long life pujas, requesting him to live a long time. No. So then verse 56, may I never falter even for an instant in upholding the excellent way of the sage, which illuminates the principle of dependent origination through all my births, even giving away my body and life, even if I have to give away my body and life. No.
Kari lula kange tigre kari sola kange tigre de inde tinde chebekal ta yushu sambeke lelu cheya chungurwa wo dinde lelu tawani mayo sho smelo jego ta.
Now here Gyümé is making a what do you call it, composed a prayer that expresses his own determination in a sense. So he's making the prayer that in all of his future lives to always uphold the Buddha's teachings without the slightest trace of laziness, even if he has to give up his life or his body, to never shirk from that, that responsibility. And so, without laziness, I mean, the point of that is that for us, if there was some difficulties for our life, if there was some difficulties for our physical body, then we might feel, we might just think, well, just forget it then. I'm not, if it's going to be difficult, then I won't bother. So Rinpoche is making that prayer to be able to, to always uphold the Buddha's teachings without laziness, no matter how difficult it is. No.
That's the Sewchaso, Tene Gyümé, Tini said Java to be Lobsang, to some Sanje Jumde, Temba is good. Tene Gyümé, Tenjung, Tekonani, Sever Zeng, to be Lobsang, Tumbe Temba is. Kyawa Tamje does Jeremujokon, Kyawa Tamje do, and D Tundala, Lu Tangoya, Ludan, Sojan, Tanes. Lu Tangoya, so Lu Tango Chunayang. Sanje Temba Zimbala, Geshe Tamil Habra Majosi, study similar to Pa Mato, you share my Papa Mutun, the Jintu show us what this
way. So may I never falter even for an instant, he says. So, he's expressing the determination in life after life, not even to succumb to laziness. In other words, to not even for a moment to ever let up this, upholding of the action of upholding the Buddha's teachings. And so that's what's meant by the second line, to uphold the excellent way of the sage, the excellent teachings of the Buddha, which illuminates the principle of dependent origination. So those teachings of the Buddha that explain, the emptiness through the understanding of dependent origination through all his lives, even if it means he has to give up his body or his life.
Sanje Temba ya Pea Julia one of you, Jamba Chodi, Kawa Pamiki, Nedenimbo General Juvati, Tangwan Shinga Power Junior, but Nabachi in Zendawashus.
Then we have a verse here, which is a dedication for the Buddha's teachings to spread. May I spend day and night carefully reflecting, by what means can I enhance this teaching achieved by the Supreme Savior through strenuous efforts over countless eons? No.
Jambacho de Kawapami is in the Jambacho de Sanje Chumden de Je. Sanje Chumden de Loba Lamjanegas, Kalemaku Jamni, Kawapami is, Penakaji Chamisum Sosawa. Jambacho de Kawapami ki, any Nendening Woodzen, Juve, Tenjung Sudita. Loba Lamjanegas, Kalemaku Jamni, any Nandomas in the Chala Nien. Mato Kalemaku Chala Chun, Kalemaku Chun, Tamanigirwa, Dinan Shichene, Tombachunde de Kalemaku Jamni, and Tenju to Ni Shabati, Ni Shabak, Tenju Chuti, Noa, Tomachu de Kawapa make Nedening Woods and Druba this Tenju, Druba the Tenju Chudere. The Takan Shigi, Power Junior Mesa, Tak Karik Goni, and Ya Dig Tembadia, Peala, and Nizekudia, and Pakali Japto shows.
The power said,
Jambacho.
Power said, the correct Kugina, called the Yaro Damadavachi.
Sanje Temba Pewa, ya Pewa. Sanje Temba Pewa, Tashi Pewa, Tashi Java. Inzen Kun, Yaketan. Oh, did it.
No. So, may I spend day and night carefully reflecting. So anyway, where it says achieved by the Supreme Savior, that's again talking about the Buddha, through strenuous efforts over countless eons. So this is talking about the way in which the Buddha, before becoming enlightened on the what we call the learner paths, the paths of the learner, and he spent like 3 countless great eons on that path, accumulating merit. So we talk about gathering the collections or collecting merit for the 3 countless great eons, at the end of which it's like he spent a long time searching, and then eventually at the end of all that, what he found was this marvelous way of the dependent origination. So that teaching, so his specifically mentioning that teaching, the teaching of dependent arising. So Lama Tsongkhapa is saying, may I spend day and night thinking, how can I enhance? Enhance means like, how can I spread this teaching achieved, that was found by the Buddha after all that effort for so many eons. No.
어디 단디 조 산지 템바야 빼야게. 빼투버 쇼 산지 템바 빼투버 쇼세야게 줄어요. 뭐안 바들 melon 바들 와.
And so this is a prayer for to be able to spread the teachings of the Buddha.
다디 제만들라 가르스는 지제 타마디 아니 산지 템바 진지 빼와라 아니 다 숨 쳐바지 되지 응나 저 치료 지사지.
Then the very last verse, 58, is a prayer to be helped in this by the various Dharma protectors. No.
하섬 답이 취디 좀바나 상다 옹보 직된 경원다 레데나 볼로스 수메장 이와메 바다도 조지쇼 손들이.
As I strive in this with pure intention, may Brahma, Indra, and the world's guardians and protectors such as Mahakala unswervingly always assist me.
다 간다라 하섬 답이 취디 좀바나 따라 스스로랑된 지구 전다 많이 봐. 아니 센스 로아 심제 탐제라 팸버 선배가 하섬 로아 하섬 넘버 답이 권에 아니 다 산지가 템바 진지 빼와 내가 깔래 잡아텔라스 하섬 답이 취디 좀바나스 깔래 잡아텔라 아니 다 템바 송기 산지가 템바 송기 스케일링게 아니 상바당 자진다 와 상도 뭐 직대종 다 간다 공부를 직대종한테 다 넘지 탐지 주제 먼저 봐 탐지 주제로서 공부 차주다 탐지 주제로서 봐 아니 반대를 하면서 봐 대다 수명 뭐 디게 아니 내대나 볼라서 수명이 이와메 바다도 조지쇼 가두이네야 아니 나 산지게 템바 진지 빼와라 아니 계란 쪽에 저 로바치로치 조치로치 어디 숨거려.
As I strive in this with pure intention. So, in other words, Lama Tsongkhapa has said that what he wants to do is to uphold and spread the Buddha's teachings. And here he's making a prayer to be helped in that endeavor by the great gods, Brahman, India, and the world's guardians and protectors, such as Mahakala. Means we're talking about the oath-bound Dhamma, Dhammaraja, yeah. Anyway, so we're talking about all these various gods and so forth that have already said that they will protect the Buddha's teaching. So it's asking for their help. So the oath-bound Dhammaraja, also the six-armed Mahakala, likewise, like for example, Sridevi Padalamo. So requesting those protectors to always help him to uphold and spread the Buddha's teachings. Now, that up to there, then these last few verses have been about expressing prayers, dedicating merit. And now what we have just right at the very end, if you've got the same copy as me, then you just got these words, this couple of paragraphs. So this is the, I don't know, anyway, what do you call it? What we normally call that? I can't remember the word we usually call it. Anyway, you can see what it is. No.
제장들이 다 제장들이 말로서는 제 산제 좀된데 산제 좀된데 지된 탐지지 마디베 다시 전부 돈발라나 매발라 사모 땡지 제벌 주 소외권에 떠발의 신용부 시작화된 망도 töbe 결론로상 잡에 빼기 간제주제 거리 온부 어디 공제제 하수 에네 하딘섬 민신 넘버 제벨링 시작화 잡에 이게 번에 나가 빼르스 남경도 제장스 디키란디나 두에 제장
Dula.
어디
Meantime, what do we usually call that? At the end of a translation, there's something or other. I can't remember what they call it now, but anyway. So anyway, whatever you call it, anyway, you can see it's there. We can read it. This hymn, entitled "Essence of Well-Uttered Insights," praising the unexcelled teacher, the great friend to the entire world, even to the unfamiliar, for teaching the profound dependent origination, was composed by the well-read monk Lobsang Pel. It was written at the heavenly retreat of Hlading on the towering mountain of Ode Gungyal, otherwise known as Ganden Nampar Gyalwe Ling, and the scribe was Namka Pel. No.
다디 표준 소바 nga sungyo 남기 떼바 치세 유 두유 표준 소바 산제 좀 된데 근데 단다 땡지 떼바 지어봐 땡지 떼바데 술로 떼바데서 떼세 유 표준 소바 산제 좀 된데지 와
This is talking about 5 excellent features, let's say. So the first one is the composition was praised with the composition had a very excellent object, which was Buddha Shakyamuni. No.
아니 두주 표준 소바 떼바 피야 표준 소바데 사모 땡중고 거네 떼바 인자 떼바 표준 소바
And then the way of praising is also excellent. That's number 2, because of praising the Buddha by for his having taught dependent origination. No. Then the next is the excellent composer, which is Losang Drapa, Lama Tsongkhapa. No. It was composed at an excellent place, which is Ode Gungyal. No.
이게 중요하게 딱 표준 소바스님도 디 표준 소바들라 또 장배 다고 자명세 기준 로다 담바 송도와 이게 빨리 나가 빼서야 돼.
No, dinanadan namkape mata lagi mendula.
딱 간다 디 이게 뭐 표준 소바스 또 장배 다고 자명세야 돼. 게다 친구진데 디기 보고 이 기주 로다 담바 마치 봄보 나가 빼서 그거랑 강사 쳐봐진지 있어요.
Anyway, so the scribe, I don't think that's right, scribe. I looked that up. I think it's better to say scribe. The scribe was Namka Pel, so that's the excellent scribe. So he was evidently a very special person. Tadi Namka Begi Yogi Sen Sumbe.
나가 빼고는 이게 중요해들이 약들라 자양 디수도와 자양 배수도와
Yang Pel. No, apparently in Rinpoche's text it says, it mentions that the scribe's father was called Jamyang Pel.
자양 배세
No.
자명
So he,
표준 소방하다 덴베기 딱 간다 덴주 좀 떠봐 표사 잠게 이게 중에 잠사기 유 디게 간가 표준 소바다 덴바리스 어디서
so it's said that this expresses 5 excellent qualities and the excellent object of the praise, the excellent composer, the excellent place, and so forth.
어떤 뒤에 먼저 던져도 차단직 줘버렸어.
So this means that we have completed the entire dependent arising praise. No.
다 뒤에 얘기한 거네만 땜제 저도 직직 로그이로
No, and then I'm going to follow the custom of reciting from the beginning just a couple of lines for auspiciousness.
나무 구름면조 고가야 강시 시시 숨바이 켄다 덤발라는 야와 땡제 저워주 시시 덤바 텔란 두 소다디 추주디 땡제도 고네마야 직로버리.
And so what I've done is I've read the verse of expression of worship, which is the first verse of this dependent rising praise. No.
디진다 디땅한조 진라디나 진라 테마카시 소바리 디컬 땡제도 차상 지금 아주 다 신롱야 괴추거리 디 신롱 괴추거리 니가 땡제도 롱 망고 슈차버리 디자 디에 괴추 롱 괴추거리 디자 다 제시 테스트 때 신롱 소로 차버리 두스는 nga 차상 출신 단데 보도도 차상 출신 소 디슈야이.
No. I wanted to say that during these classes, we've had several classes together, and I just realized I didn't put my microphone on. We've had several classes where we've gone through the whole of the dependent rising praise, and it's been basically an explanatory transmission, because I have received the transmission of this text, the oral transmission of this text many times, and as I've been going through it, I've been explaining it a little bit, so it's pretty much an explanatory transmission of Shilong. No. No. So we can just stop there, or if people have questions, then go ahead and we can have some questions. The group did do us
내가 망고 요리 디보루라 인 진짜 그 주주딘데 망고 땅 그런 정도 좀 제가 빼면서 야고리 인단다 슝리 송만나시 또 개치슈 삼바상보다 시나 펜슨다 셈상보체야데 빼면서 개치모리스 남매주가 라자 님보디 셈상보체야데 디단 남매주자 많이 봐 이슈 뜸바레 가지 뜸바레 뜸바 관계게 다 참바다 닝지세야데 관계게 송샤베 랍자진도 딩어 좀 미지나 가서 투두게 냠레치투도 잡아야는 미지 셈바기고 요한테 미지 촌다 때마요 편도요 예스.
So I would like to say, I really think it's very good that you've taken an interest in learning about this teaching, and you have to work hard during the day, and you've taken this time out to study. So it's really very good, I think. And I want to say that really the heart of the Buddha's teachings, the essence, you might say, of the Buddha's teachings is to have a good heart, to have good intentions towards others. And of course, it's not just in Buddhism, actually. This is, loving kindness and compassion. They're taught by all the other major religions, like in Christianity, it's a central message. So if you try to do that, if you try to have a good heart, you try to have beneficial intentions towards others, then you'll have a happy life and your life will be meaningful. No. No. Maybe we'll stop there anyway. I think you're probably feeling a bit tired by now. No. So then I don't really think I have anything else to say. So, but anyway, from the side of the center and the side of all of you. I think I can speak on your behalf and thank Ken Rinpoche for this teaching. It's been really quite amazing, so very, very clear, very precious. And it's like, I know, it's funny, isn't it, with Zoom? It's like being together again. But at the same time, it's a bit like I miss Genla actually being here with us. It's in the past, Genla has been visited us for several months, several years he did that, and it was always very beautiful experience. And so it's been a bit like being together with Genla again, but at the same time feeling like if only he could come again and stay for a while, it would be so nice. But anyway, Genla, so as you know, Ken Rinpoche is abbot of the Sigu Monastery, which is itself a big responsibility and a lot of work. So we really appreciate that he so kindly accepted to take time to, to explain this to us, which is such a really unbelievable teaching itself, and then to have explanation of this has been really very, very, very helpful, very kind. No.
Any don't 디체네 디기도 빠게 아니 양 제마 양 아주 주주진데 직진을 랑도 가버려 양 아주 롭센 가리고를 템비체와 있는 양 아주 주도 지속으로 봐 근데
so maybe we'll finish off with our dedications and so on, and I hope, who knows, maybe in the future we'll also be able to arrange some things like this. We'll, that would be good, wouldn't it? So then Michael, please. So we have the mandala offering. No, this no. So we have the mandala offering. Mazareke ahon jare koyuki kowe uzo ri gyapore rabshale tapolo zambole no balanje chandramine ludan lupa ngayab yin yoden dan lanjo dro draminyen dan draminyen gita Rinpoche Ryo Ba Samgi Shin Deje Ba Mama Pai Lo Do Kolo Rinpoche Nobo Rinpoche Sumbo Rinpoche Lumbo Rinpoche Lambo Rinpoche Tacho Rinpoche Maben Rinpoche Tejembe Bumba Gyama Tenwama Luma Garama Medoma Dubima Nansema Dichama Nima Tawa Rinpoche To Chole Namba Gyawe Gyazenge Usuladami Paja Bunzun Soba Ma Sanwa Meba Sanjin Yido Wanwa Tida Tenjin Sawa Tangyu Jebe Baden Lama Damba Namdan Gyaba Doyan Lozan Lama Lozan Towan Toje Chan Jim Lazo Kodan Jeba Namla Shingam Ye Toje Doe Dundu Jesus Shene Gandazo Do Amagyo Nange Tadanyam Semje Namjela Uzewa Jembe Kone Chingi La Tu Sa Jepegi Joji Me To Tram Ri Ra Li Nyende Gembate Sangye Shindo Me Buwaye Jeba Yo Indam Guru Radnamendagamni Dayami. Michael, there's nothing on the screen. So if we can have the dedication prayers now, please. Okay, thanks. Yeah. Jamba Bao Jeda Gimba Gundu Zambo De Ante Jinde Deda Gungi Jesu Da Lobji Gewa Dida Tamje Rabdu Ngo Dusun Shepe Gyawa Tamje Gi Mawa Kanla Jotu Ngapa De Dagi Gewe Sawa Di Gungyang Zambo Jeje Rabdu Mawa Ye Kare Rab Koe Shingande Pendan Dewa Malu Jongwene Genese Wan Denzin Gazo Ye Shabe Site Badu Denguru Is that it? Okay. And we don't have a prayer at the moment, but anyway, if we dedicate also to long life and good health of Khensur Rinpoche, also Khensur Rinpoche, but anyway, Ken Rinpoche, then that's it really. So thanks everybody. No. So thanks very much. That's perfect. And see you again in the future sometime. And Khonsur Kanga did this Tujije Labchuna. If you want to, you can all unmute and say thank you if you want to. Some people like to do.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Thank you,
Venerable
Venerable
Steve
Steve
as well. And
Thank you.
Appreciate
Blessings.